Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Identity Theft workshop. Today it's provided to you by CCOA, Credit Counseling of Arkansas. We're going to have a presentation and then we'll have time for questions at the end. This is being broadcast and recorded as well. For those of you that are listening online, if you have any difficulties with the online broadcast, hearing it, whatever, please contact me. My cell phone number is 918-521-0566. Text me or call me and we'll get your technical difficulties taken care of. For those of you that are in the room, if you would please mute your cell phones so that, and if you need to take a call, please just step out to do that. That will reduce any technical difficulties with our presentation. So at this time, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters from CCOA. Joel, at the end, we'll come on.
Thank you very much. My name is Joel Wilshire. I work as Relations Housing Counseling in Arkansas. My colleague Mark Foster will be doing our presentation as well. He's also working with education leads. Our team from Credit Counseling of Arkansas is a great nonprofit organization. We've been working in the community for 22 years now. Mark has been with CCOA for 20 of those years, and I've been with them for 17. CCOA is a nonprofit. We do community education outreach of this sort. We also do one-on-one counseling sessions. We hold home buyer education classes. We hold classes on how to improve credit. Occasionally I do a class on how to repay student loans. And then we do one-on-one counseling as well, where people can come in, we can help them work on their budget, help them develop strategies to repay debt. We're a housing counseling agency and help people who are struggling to make their mortgage payments. And so we do a lot of different things in the community. In the course of our work, one of the things that has been a problem in personal finance for a number of years, of course, is identity theft. And Mark in particular is kind of our local expert in identity theft. And with the recent data breach, the HR folks at the U of A asked us to come in and talk a little bit about data breaches and particularly identity theft effects that go along with that. I want to look at that problem, but before I do, I want to bring your attention to the handout that was available as you walked in today, and for those of you who are tuning in remotely, we can get you a copy of this, an electronic copy as well. It's got some great resources on there. And this was a lot of material that I went to find out about the nature of the problem and what can be done about it. And I strongly encourage you to kind of look at the resources on there. Obviously, we're going to try to cover as many bases as we can here today, but we can't cover everything. But some of these are wonderful resources. Let's go to the first one, for example. The identitytheft.gov is a government website that helps address the problem. And it gives you a chance to just kind of do a walkthrough where you can click through to get started, identify what the problem is that you encountered, and they'll give you a whole list of strategies that you can use that are tailored to what you face. I encourage you to use that. And this is from the Federal Trade Commission, also about identity theft. It gives you some information about steps that you can take in order to recover from identity theft. Just a little more tracks. This is a very comprehensive booklet, 40-page booklet on identity theft and developing a recovery plan. 40 pages is a lot to go through, so those other resources might be ones that you turn to first. Then the third one, or the fourth one rather, is the Identity Theft Resource Center, or ITRC. And this is was put together not only by government agencies, but also by private companies in order to help address the problem of identity theft. And I encourage you to look at this. If you go to the information, I want some information there. see it says data breaches on the left side. Click on that. They collect information about data breaches, and I'll give you some statistics they collected recently, but they kind of keep on top of this stuff. So it's nice to know that people are tracking this. So let's look at a little bit at some of the problem as it's developed. One example, recent example of a serious data breach occurred in 2014, where JP Chase, their big bank, had a data breach. And it affected 76 million households, 7 million small businesses, and usernames, phone numbers, addresses were all compromised as a result of this. So clearly a pretty serious data breach recently. Another example is Home Depot, also had a serious breach back in 2014. And they had 56 million of their card holders had their data exposed. Again, very serious. Very serious.
So do they not know when somebody's going to or is hacking into their system?
Not immediately. It takes them, though the question was, do they not know when somebody's hacking into their system? And the answer is not immediately. It takes them a while to recognize that there's a problem. And you know how long it takes to get the top close. A more recent example was the University of North Carolina healthcare system. Now this only affected 1,300 people, so you think that's not very big compared to 56 million. But look at the data that they got. They had the breach exposed patients' names, addresses, race and ethnicity, social security numbers, and personal health care information. Very serious breach. And then in April of this year, FAFSA, or Free Application for Federal Student Aid, had a breach in their system. 100,000 taxpayers had their personal information stolen, and there were 8,000 fraudulent returns issued as a result of that. Now, the IRS says, well, 8,000 returns were issued to these fraudsters, but they did capture, or prevented rather, 52,000 other fraudulent returns. But again, it's a pretty serious problem. The Identity Theft Resource Center, which I showed you the link to earlier, they track these things, and according to them, this year alone, there have been 791 breaches reported, and that's impacted or exposed over 12 million consumer records. It's a very serious problem. So why do I mention all these? Am I welcoming you to a club or something? Well, that's really not the point of it. It's really to show you just how serious the problem is, how widespread the problem is. That this didn't just occur in January of this year with the data breach at the U of A. This has been ongoing. It's been a serious problem for quite some time. Maybe none of you were exposed to it previously, but it really reminds us that this is the world we live in now. That we live in a technological world, and that technological world allows us great possibilities. I can spend an hour and I can research and find out that my uncle flew into Normandy on D-Day, all online. Or I can order bath salts that my niece likes and have it sent to her house in 3 or 4 days. And that's all because of the technological world we live in. We have great possibilities. But that technology is amoral. It's neither good nor bad. It has wonderful features, but there's people who use it for nefarious purposes. They gain your private information, to expose that information, and take advantage of it as well. So I want to make sure you're aware that the problem didn't just arise. This is the world we live in now. It's the world we're going to live in going forward. We've got to take precautions. We've got to be able to recognize when problems do occur and know what we have to do in order to overcome the problems that we face. It's going to be an ongoing part of our lives, unfortunately. There are strategies from the IRS that says, oh, somebody's already filed for that. We've got a problem here. Another problem is that somebody opens new lines of credit in your name without you knowing about it. They start making purchases on those lines of credit, and yet that line of credit is traced back to your name. Another potential problem is that somebody might be using your existing lines of credit. So you already have a Best Buy card or a Citibank card. Somehow they get, an entity gets the information on that and you can use that. Making charges in your name for purchases that they keep at their house. And then the final thing that I want to mention, potential problem I want to talk about is what's called check synthesizing. And that's where somebody opens up a checking account in your name. And we'll kind of explain what that is, how that becomes a problem, how you can identify it, and what you can do to overcome the problem. Let's deal with it in turn. Okay, so the first problem is somebody files for your tax returns. You file your taxes, you're not as quick on this as you probably should be. You wait until April, you submit your tax returns, and you get a note back from the IRS that, well, wait a minute, somebody's already claimed this tax return. And so they get your return and you don't. How are you going to know about this problem? The primary way you're going to know is you're going to get a letter from the IRS. The letter is called the CT01A notice from the IRS. It's going to say, flag is raised up, you've got somebody else has already claimed this, and so you're going to be notified that way. One of the things I want to point out is when the IRS contacts you, they will send you a letter. They will not call you and say, you owe us $10,000 and you have to get Apple cards, iPhone cards, and send them to us right away so that we can resolve this problem. That's a common scam that is being seen these days. They don't call you on the phone. They don't send you an email about the problem. They're going to send you a letter. And for this particular problem, the letter is going to be that form CT108 letter. That's how you're going to know that the problem exists, that you're facing a problem. But what if you don't get this letter, but you talk to Betty down the hall, and Betty says, yeah, I got the IRS letter. You didn't get it? I got it. And you're thinking to yourself, I didn't get the letter, but I'm kind of worried. Well, if you're hearing that around you, that's going to raise your concern. Maybe it should. What can you do to deal with this problem? When you get the IRS letter, if you are notified that the breach has occurred and that somebody has filed for your account, they're going to send you a letter, and that letter is going to contain information about how to contact and who to contact the IRS. You want to contact that person and talk to them about the problem. It is also going to include what's called an IP PIN, identity protection pin. So that IP PIN is something that you're going to use in future tax returns. Every year, when you file your tax returns, you're going to have to include an IP PIN on it so that the IRS knows that they're talking to Joe Abramowitz or whoever you are. They're going to send you a new notice every December. That IP PIN changes every year. And so they're going to send you a new notice every December in order to let you know what your new IP PIN is. And that's what you're going to use in order to file your taxes and let the IRS know for sure that you are who you say you are. One of the interesting things I found out is that if somebody already has filed for taxes in their name, you can get a copy of the fraudulent tax return that was filed. It might have some sections of it redacted, but you can get a copy of that. So if you file a police report, you can present that can include that in the police report. Or you can check to see whether the signature on there closely matches your brother-in-law's signature. Start holding him accountable for all this. Yes?
Is any action taken against people who file for your taxes?
Well, we try to catch them if possible. Well, the question was, does anything happen to those people who engage in this nefarious activity? And certainly they try to catch them and prosecute them. I don't know how successful they are, but yeah, they do. There are efforts involved in trying to catch them. Yes.
How do they know that they're sending the IP pin to the right person? They could be sending it to the person then.
Okay, how do they know that they're sending the IP pin to the right person? Well, you contacted them after you get that letter. And they're going to ask you information that they have on record, primarily things like, what was your adjusted gross income in the previous tax filing, which the identity thief is not going to know the answer to that question. So once they have verification of that, then they'll contact you with the IP pin. Yes?
How do you do this? How do you request this?
How do you request the IP pin?
No, the fraudulent.
I'm sorry?
Fraudulent.
The fraudulent return. Okay. On your resource sheet, the question is how do you get the fraudulent return? On your resource sheet, let me pull up the resource sheet again. If you look under point 1D, it gives you the link that you can use in order to get a copy of that fraudulent return. In a way, I organized the resource sheet to kind of follow the way I'm talking through this material. So, but I'm glad to explain it as we go through. Does that answer your question, Chair, sir? Okay. Yes, another question?
So what keeps somebody from setting up an IP for me?
What keeps somebody from setting up an IP pin? Okay. What will happen is, if there's suspicious activity, the IRS is going to get in touch with you. They're going to ask you to call a certain person, and they're going to ask you information that they have from previous years to verify that you are who you say you are. And they might ask for other documents like your water bill at your current address, something of that sort. So they're going to know, yeah, because that's a good question. How do they know that it's not somebody else scamming the protection of the system? But they have steps to check that out.
Now, in my husband's banking account, I mean, they tried to hack into it like 4 or 5 different times, and the bank has always caught it immediately and stopped it. So if the banks do this, I mean, take JP, Chase, and all of them, I mean, that's where I have my checking in. It's quite in companies not that big. Jump on this quick when somebody's trying to hack in. Okay. Take a local bank that gets it.
Did the outside audience hear that, or the question was, the questioner asked, since her husband's bank account, somebody tried to hack that, and the bank caught it quite quickly. Why is it that these larger banks or other agencies can't kind of capture the problem earlier on and avoid it from being a bigger problem? Different thieves might have different strategies, and it might be easier for a smaller bank to try to manage that. Plus, I think more and more financial institutions are recognizing the nature of the problem and are taking steps to try to deal with it. I'm not exactly sure why they can't do more, but I know that every financial institution, anybody who's handling your money, is increasingly aware of the problem and is being asked to take steps, be forced to take steps in order to protect your personal information.
Yeah, you would think these big companies would just have flags going up everywhere.
Yeah, you would think that the big companies would be able to do that, and that was surprising. Home Depot, 56 million accounts. It's staggering. But I'm sure that they have protection in place now, but of course it's already left the barn for them in that case. So, somebody files for your tax return was the first problem. The recognized problem is you got an IRS notice. The problem might be that you don't get a notice, but you're still concerned. And the steps you can take involve reading that letter closely with that you get from the IRS, following the steps, using that IP PIN number going forward. Oh yeah, we can get a copy of the fraudulent report as well. But that's it. The IRS picks up on the problem. What if they don't pick up on the problem? What if there's no IRS fraud yet, but you know that one of your coworkers had this happen to them, and you're still concerned? Is there any kind of preventative care that we can take in order to avoid the problem? There's no current problem, no current evidence of theft of your return. One of the things that you can do is you can submit an affidavit form 14039. And it says, I've been the victim of identity theft, and I'm concerned, and I want to bring this to the IRS's attention. If you do that, it's possible that you might be invited into the IP PIN program. But right now, there's only 3 groups that are allowed in the IP PIN program. It's those who have received that CCOA letter, where there was clearly evidence of a breach and an attempt to get your return. Secondly, if you live in Florida, Georgia, or the District of Columbia, because apparently those areas were particularly hard hit, or if you're invited in by the IRS to join the IP PIN program. So that's an exclusive club or something. But that's pretty limited criteria. They're not letting just everybody in. But if you do file that ID theft affidavit, it's possible that they might invite you into that program. But it was kind of interesting. I had a conversation recently with an IRS representative, and she brought some points to my attention that I hadn't been aware of before. One is that there's certain hassles that go along with being on the IP PIN program. One of them is that once you're in that club, you're stuck in that club. A flag has gone up, it's on your file, and you can't just get out of it. That's going to be on your file going forward. Another thing is there are certain IRS services that are easy to access right now online. Like if you wanted to get a prior tax return, you can do that fairly readily online. You have to show some knowledge of identification, but that's fairly relatively easy to do. If you get on an IP PIN program, it is much more difficult to do that. Your file is flagged. And I think the most important thing that the representative talked to me about, she mentioned that your return is not at risk. Nobody is going to take your tax return and walk away with it and leave you without a tax return. You're going to get it. It might take some time. It might take a couple extra months, which is unfortunate, but you will get that tax return that you filed for. That money isn't gone, never to be seen again from you. So if you think about the kind of hassles that go along with filing that ID theft affidavit and not being sure that you're going to even be invited into their exclusive club, you have to ask yourself whether it's really worth it or not. But if you do want to do that, on the resource page, I did give you a link to how you can file that form. And it's pretty straightforward. It's a 2-page form. There's really only two boxes and one short section that you have to comment on. In section A, you just say, I'm submitting that for myself. And then section B, I don't know that somebody has used my info to file taxes, but I've been the victim of identity theft as a result of a breach. And then you provide a brief explanation of that. That you want to go to. So here's the form. In section A, it's just the first box. I'm submitting this form for myself. In section B, it's just number 2 actually is checked. If somebody has filed using my information to file taxes, I'm not doing my identity theft, and then you just say we had a data breach at my employer. I've heard other employees who have had their taxes, people file on their taxes, and I'm concerned. You may or may not get an invitation to join the club afterwards. We'll go back to the presentation. So it's more likely that you're going to have serious problems if somebody opens up lines of credit in their name than using your tax, filing for your taxes. Like I said, you will get your tax return. It might be delayed, it might be a little bit of a hassle, but you're not at risk of losing that money. Let's talk about the second problem I'm going to try to address, and that is if somebody opens up credit accounts in your name. With your personal information, an identity theft, a thief rather, could open up lines of credit in your name, make unauthorized charges on that account, and until it's straightened out, those creditors think that you're the one who made those purchases. So if somebody walks in to Best Buy, says, hi, my name is Mark Foster, and I want to get a line of credit so I can buy a refrigerator. They fill out that application, process it, and now this card is open in the name of Mark Foster, my colleague. They charge that refrigerator on there, and now Best Buy is going to be contacting my colleague here, thinking that he's responsible for that those refrigerator payments. How do you know that this problem is occurring? Obviously, it could be a serious problem. First of all, if you get turned down for credit, that could be a sign that somebody has done this to you. You go to buy a new car, fill out an application, and they say, no, we can't let you, we can't give you this loan for the car because you already have too much debt. You think, I hardly have any debt at all. But then come to find out, somebody who's been opening up lines of credit in your name. Remember that the identity thief is not making payments on these accounts. They've got a refrigerator, they've got a big screen TV in their house, but they're not making payments. At some point, Best Buy or Citibank or whoever is going to be saying, I'm not really happy about this. I'm sending these bills to the P.O. box that I was instructed to send them to, but I'm not getting any money back. At some point, they're going to assign that debt to a collection agency. The collection agency is going to be a little bit more aggressive at tracking you down, go beyond just that P.O. box, and they're going to start calling you and sending you letters. There might be another sign that this has happened. If you manage to, or you happen to check your credit report from time to time, you might see accounts showing up on there that you never applied for. Heck, I never had a Best Buy account. I don't see why that's showing up here, why it's in delinquent status. Another sign. And finally, if you are getting a credit monitoring service, the credit monitoring service should be looking for new accounts being opened, and they should be sending you alerts about this as well. That could be another way that you would know that this is a problem that's happening to you. So how do you respond to this? What do you do? one of the things that you should do is, first of all, if you're getting credit protection, read the material on that credit protection and understand what exactly it's doing. What is it covering? What is it trying to alert you for? And be sure that you recognize the range of coverage, the limits of it. A lot of people, I know that the IRS is working with Equifax, one of the 3 major credit reporting agencies. And for people who had fraudulent return filings on their tax returns, IRS sent them a letter, and then the IRS said, we've got this partnership with Equifax as well on a credit monitoring service. If you want it, it's free. I would say if it's free, it's a legitimate service, go ahead and take advantage of it. Kind of like plywood. Plywood is strong because it's the grain is going in different directions. We've got several credit monitoring services helping keep an eye out for problems. I think that's better than just having one. Most of them are very good to begin with, but having several of those is even better. It's a good idea to regularly monitor your own credit reports too. This is another step that you should take. So even if you are not a victim of identity theft, you are eligible for 3 free credit reports per year, one from each of the 3 major credit reporting agencies. If you're not a victim of ID theft, you might want to just get in the habit of pulling one of them every 4 months. Equifax now, 4 months from now, pull TransUnion, 4 months after that, pull Experian report. And look to see whether there are any unfamiliar accounts showing up on there. The website for that is annualcreditreport.com, by the way. I think that's going to be on your resource sheet as well. But that allows you to see what's going on. You can put a fraud alert on your credit reports. That's another step that you can take to prevent problems going forward. The way a fraud alert goes is that it sort of sets a flag on your credit report. If I walk into Best Buy and I want to apply for a line of credit with them, I fill out an application, they go into online and pull a credit report on me to see whether I'm creditworthy or not. And if I'm creditworthy, they might open up an account in my name. Well, when a fraud alert is put on your credit report, that says to the creditor, Best Buy in this case, there has been some suspicious activity here. Make sure that the person in front of your desk who's pretending to be Joel Dolger actually is Joel Dolger. And they can do that by either calling my cell phone or by asking the merchant to ask a query question like, who is my mortgage with? Or they might send me a letter saying, did you know that somebody on July 12th tried to open a Best Buy account? And until they get that verification, the creditor, Best Buy, is not going to assign them a line of credit because they know there's a risk there. They might not get their money back. Yes, another question? No, that was you.
Sorry, I thought somebody was behind me.
No.
Okay, this is a situation that's going on with my husband right now. First of all, a telemarketer is his best friend. It's an hour. Okay? He ordered some books, and it was $1,500 again. Supposed to be paid off in a year. He did. Well, good. Next month, all of a sudden, they're taking money out of his checking account again because that's the way it was set up. And he called them, and he's like, why are you still taking money? And they said, you renewed the account to do it another year. He's like, no, I did not. They go, sir, we have non-reporting. So it's kind of like, now what do you do?
Okay.
Is that fraud?
Yes, it is fraud. Let me repeat the question for those people who are in distant locations who might not have heard it. woman in the audience said that her husband ordered some books online, received the books, paid for them, and now they keep sending books and keep billing them on an ongoing basis. And they're claiming that they have audio recording of her husband authorizing the ongoing charges. And two things that you do. One is contact like, did you put it on a credit card?
Somebody like sent him an email on his phone, you know, he gets stuff all the time. And I don't know whether he called them or they called him,
Okay.
but he agreed to the first time.
Did he pay it through a credit card or did he pay it through
They take it out of his checking
take it out of his checking account? Okay, one of the things that you do is talk to your bank and say you're no longer authorizing withdrawals from that particular merchant.
Oh, that's good.
And then you can also contact the Arkansas State Attorney General's office and file a complaint with them. And then get on the case of that person. But you probably also want to check your credit report to see if they're reporting anything on there. If they are, file a dispute with the credit reporting agency saying that this was a bill was a result of unauthorized account. Does that answer your question?
Well, that last one kind of confused me. What did you say on that? Contact you them?
You could contact the credit reporting agencies if that bill is showing up on your credit report, on your husband's credit report. Because
Well, I don't think anything showing up on a credit report.
if it's not showing up on the credit report, then don't worry about it. But sometimes if like they're claiming that he owes money and he's not paying it,
But he is paying, even though he didn't renew.
okay,
He's like, well, I don't know what to do except pay it. And I'm like, Steve,
you know, talk to the bank, tell them you're no longer authorizing them to send money on that, and then file a complaint with the Attorney General's office.
like say for instance, they recorded the first time him saying, yes, I would like to order these for can they use that same?
Can they use the initial recording of
Yes.
the authorization the second time? I'm sure the Attorney General's office is quite familiar with scams like that, and they would know how to put pressure on that person, on that merchant.
Where do I find that?
The Attorney General's office, just go to ag.ar.gov, I think it is, or look up Leslie Rutledge, or
We can help you with that afterwards.
Yeah,
We'll
just
talk about
somebody
it
get me started.
afterwards.
This is a sex worker.
Okay.
Gosh. Okay, thank you.
sure. But you can put a fraud alert on your credit reports. That way, if somebody tries to open an account in your name, that merchant is going to check with you to verify that you're the one that's trying to open up that account. Oh, if you can put an initial fraud alert on your credit report, if you just have concerns. There might be no fraud that's occurred yet, but you're just worried that something might happen. You put an initial fraud alert on there, and it lasts for 90 days, and you can renew that every 90 days if you want. If you are actually a victim of identity theft, a proven victim of identity theft, and that you file a police report on it, then you can get an extended fraud alert put on your credit report, and that lasts for 7 years. For those 7 years, that those fraud alert mechanisms will be in place. Also, it keeps you from getting unwarranted solicitations from banks and insurance companies and others like that. Another step that you can take is what's called a security freeze, and I'll explain that in a little bit. It's even further than a fraud alert. But there are some potential downsides with it, so I'll explain that in a second. If you wanted to put a fraud alert on your credit report, you can contact the 3 major credit reporting agencies. They have separate units in their agencies to try to deal with this problem. And those are the numbers that you can use. You can add with link on the resource page as well that can take you to those phone numbers. Another thing, if you are a victim of identity theft, you are allowed 2 free copies from each of the 3 major credit reporting agencies per year. That's the benefit of having filed a police report. So let's look at the idea of a creditor security freeze. With a creditor security freeze, it prevents the creditors from accessing the credit report at all. So they can't, if I go to the Best Buy and I try to open up a line of credit, they're going to try to pull up a credit report on me to see about the creditworthiness, and they're not even going to be able to get in. All they're going to be able to see is security freeze. Clearly, they're not going to extend a line of credit on somebody if they don't know anything about their creditworthiness. So that locks them out more completely. In order to put a security freeze on there, again, you contact the credit reporting agencies. There is a potential downside of a security freeze, a credit freeze, and that is, let's say you put a freeze on your credit reports, but some of your car dies, and you got to go out and buy a new car. You go and try to get an auto loan, and you go to the bank, credit union, and they try to pull you up, and they say, oh, we can't shift it back, we have security freeze on it. So they can't give you legitimate service in that case. What you have to do is you have to thaw your frozen credit report. And it's just a process. It used to take more time, but now apparently they've gotten pretty quick at it. And it can be done in as little as 15 minutes. Call the credit reporting agencies, you verify information with them, and say, I want to thaw my credit, I want to thaw on my credit freeze for the next 30 days while I shop for a car loan. They'll establish that window of 30 days, and then that's the protection is opened up for that period of time. Any questions about the difference between security freeze or fraud alert? The numbers for thawing, or the numbers for the establishing a credit freeze or thawing are the same for TransUnion and Experian as they were as the previous numbers. It's just Equifax that has a separate unit for freezes. So, no number for them.
Question.
Yes, question.
So I did have, we were part of this breach, and somebody tried to follow the federal and state tax return. I did go in and do some of these things, but I guess my question is there sort of a hierarchy here? Is it like the easiest thing to do is to file a tax return, and if that's happened to you, you really ought to watch out because it's more likely that somebody's going to try to open a credit account in your name? Or is there like a pattern these people tend to follow?
Okay. The question is, this audience member was impacted by the tax return scam, and she wanted to know, is there a sequence that normally plays out in where they try to file their taxes, whether that works or not, or they then move on to something else. I don't know the exact pattern, but what I have heard is that there is a market for this information. So if I'm a thief, which I'm not, but if I'm a credit thief and I specialize in IRS fraud, I might use your information for that purpose, but then sell it to my cousin, the rest of the information to my cousin, who specializes in establishing new lines of credit. And so this information does get marketed. So I don't know that there's necessarily a defined pattern, but if you've been hit for the tax return problem, you need to be aware of those other problems as well. Yes?
Can you get you a sense
Well,
Grab Shelly's phone numbers if you want.
sure. And gentleman asked if I could send the slides. I'll provide that to the HR folks. They can pass that along to anybody who wants it.
Sir, did you sign in?
So we talked about two particular problems, the one with the tax returns, the other, the problem with if somebody opens up new lines of credit in your name. A third problem could occur when somebody gets access to your existing accounts and then starts making charges on those accounts and then keeps the product for themselves. My colleague Mark Foster is going to explain that, the nature of that problem to you. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Joel. All right, well, Joel has the camera motion tracker, so he's going to be my shadow.
Shadow Mark.
Anywhere I go, he's going to have to go too, so it's going to be fun. All right, well, what if someone accesses your current accounts and makes charges to them? How would you know? Well, there are some indicators. If your card statement shows that you purchased a 65-inch TV that's currently not in your living room, that can be a red flag. Or if your spouse asks why you've been ordering bottles of wine at the Tic Tac Club in Bucharest, that's another indicator. Now, most car companies are up on that, and if they see something that's a non-traditional purchase or way out of the area that you frequent, then they'll usually flag that and contact you. They're pretty good about that. My car companies have done that with me. Interesting side note I want to hit on. Sometimes it's actually too good, the card company protection. If you want to use your card, ironically enough, we had a TV show called Money Matters we did on JTN, the Jones Television Network, which JTN is no longer there, but it was for years on cable in West Arkansas. And I produced and hosted a show called Money Matters. And we had, ironically enough, a Springdale policeman on our show one day to talk about identity theft and so forth. Well, he was, I believe, in the Guard, and he was doing some training over in Israel. And he was trying to use his card. Meanwhile, the card company was trying to call him at home in Springdale saying, hey, is this you trying to make this charge? Somebody's trying to use your card in Israel. And I think this was 10, 15 years ago. I don't even know if he had a cell phone or they had his number. So this poor guy was trying to use his card, and needed to use his card on the other side of the world, and wasn't able to because the card company was up. So all I tell people is it's great to have that protection and those companies be so vigilant. But what will really help you is before you go make a large purchase and get that 65-inch TV, or before you take that vacation, like I did with my wife and I, our 10th anniversary, we went to Nassau, Bahamas. Called the card company and I said, hey, I'm going to take a cruise with my wife for our anniversary. These are the dates we're leaving and coming back and so forth. If I can use my card, please let me do so. Okay, we'll make a note of that. And no problems, everything was fine. But I've heard many times over the years where someone said they tried to use their card while they were on vacation or make a large purchase and it was declined. So the easy way around that is just contact your card company, credit card or even debit card, and give them a heads up ahead of time and let them know. And then you'll have smooth sailing and you won't have an issue with that. All right, now back to someone accessing your current accounts, makes charges on them. How would you know? Some more red flags. If Capital One calls you and says, you authorize $10,000 in gift card purchases, that's a red flag. If your cell phone is getting 3 alerts an hour from the credit monitoring service about unusual purchases, obviously that's a red flag. And you do want to pay attention to those, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then lastly for a red flag, if your checking account is overdrawn due to automatic payment on a credit card account. For example, let's say you set up your Citibank card to pay a minimum payment, which is currently $25 for you a month. But if someone took control of that account and ran up a whole bunch of charges, as that balance went way up, so did the minimum payment. So maybe now the minimum payment's $85, but you didn't know that. And maybe you're living pretty tight with that checking account balance so that money's coming out of, and then you're overdrawn on your account as a result. So that would be a red flag. Now, what you can do, some things we tell folks, pay attention to those alerts from the monitoring service. I know if you're getting texts or emails from your bank or credit monitoring anyway, sometimes we can almost dismiss those. If we're busy, we've got a lot of things going on, we can say, it's probably nothing. It's probably just a comment on this, or my statement's handed this or that way. I'm not going to look at that right now. Well, we need to go ahead and not assume that that's a junk email or an irrelevant email or text, and go ahead and check it out just to make sure everything is fine. Review your creditor statements regularly and dispute any unauthorized purchases. And that's good advice anytime, is to review our statements. In fact, it was only about 2 or 3 months ago that I saw a charge on one of our statements. I think it was our debit card. In fact, I said to my wife, did you charge $9.99 for some Google Play service or something? If you did, that's fine. I just want to make sure it's legit. It wasn't some kind of crooked thing. And she said, well, yeah, I did, but that was a one-time thing. That was a one-time charge, and that was supposed to stop. So she said, I'm going to have to contact them and tell them, hey, stop. You've charged me for a couple of months now. It was only supposed to be a one-time thing. So it's always wise advice to take a look at our statements and see what's on those. So we have a heads up on things. The Fair Credit Billing Act limits our liability to a maximum of $50 per card, so that's great news. So if there's fraudulent charges, it's not like we're going to be responsible for $5,000 in charges. Fair Credit Billing Act limits our liability to $50 per card. And most card companies, kind of as a perk for having the cards they have, we have zero liability protection, so don't worry about it. And then I was going to mention, if your card number was stolen, but not your card, the Fair Credit Billing Act says you're guaranteed zero liability if someone got your number but not your card.
Is there any difference in security between Visa card, credit card, and debit cards?
Is there any difference in security? Honestly, I don't know. I will say I have had my Visa card company just on the ball and contact me when they said, hey, is this you, or da-da-da. And I've had the debit card company folks contact me. One time I bought, I used to play, games like Farmville and that kind of thing. I played one called Mafia Wars or a little bit. And I bought something, and they contacted my debit card company. They said, hey, is this you playing an online game? So they were both on it. Visa was on it with me. Debit card company through my bank was on it with me to make sure that there were fraudulent charges. So I don't know the inner workings of those, but I know both were on top of it. Joel, do you have any?
Just one thing I want to mention is that technically the Fair Credit Billing Act covers credit cards. So it limits your liability to $50 on a credit card. It does not cover debit cards, technically. But if you talk to your bank, a lot of banks will say, we offer the same protection to debit cards as we do a credit card. So just check that with your bank to see if the liability issue is a concern of yours.
And tying in with what Joel said, basically with debit cards, the longer it takes you to notify the bank that, hey, there's something wrong here, the more the bank may hold you liable for that if they say, well, you should have known about that when we gave you your statement 4 months ago about that. So another reason for us to stay up on our statements and look through there and make sure everything's accurate. crooked. But as Joel said, oftentimes banks will just say, we've got covered. Something else you can do is to ask your creditor to open up a new account for you, close your old one down. I did that one time years ago. I can't remember the specifics of it. It was so long ago. But there was a card that I had used for something that made me nervous for some reason. I thought, I'm not sure if that was protected or that's the best company, whatever it was. But I remember calling my card company and said, hey, here's what I did. I used my card for da-da-da-da. Kind of nervous about it now. Thinking about just getting a new number, a new card, and getting rid of the current one. What do you think? And they agreed with me. Again, I don't remember the specifics. But they said, sure, no problem. Yeah, we agree that could be an issue. So they just go ahead and gave me a new card, different number, all that. Just had that problem off the past before it potentially could happen. Continue to keep an eye on your credit reports and review that information. It pays to stay on top of it. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the saying goes. And then one other risk worth mentioning is I'm going to hand it back to Joel. So now we can talk about check synthesizing.
Okay. As I said, we're going to talk about 4 different problems. The last one we'll talk about is called check synthesizing. What happens is somebody opens up a checking account in your name. They go into a bank, they've got your personal information, they open up a checking account where you put down $300 required to open the account, and then they go out and start writing checks. $100, $200, and another $100, $500, and $600, $1,200, way beyond their initial deposit of $300. Now, that bank is saying, wait a minute, you're way overdrawn, and they want to hold you responsible for it. Well, they don't have access to the thief's actual contact information. They're going to be coming after and contacting you instead. They'll try to hold you responsible. So the signs of trouble of that occurring might be that you receive a notice from a bank that you don't use. Let's say you bank at Artex, and suddenly you get a letter from Signature Bank saying your checking account is way overdrawn. You don't even bank at Signature Bank. Another sign of the problem might be that a merchant contacts you and says, you bounced a check here. You're responsible for this $112 for the check that you wrote. And you say, wait a minute, I've never even shopped there. I've never eaten there. That would be another sign. If you are still using paper checks and you give one to a merchant to make a purchase, and that merchant runs it through their check scanning system, and they say, I'm sorry, we can't accept your check because your name is flagged on the system. That might be another sign as well. There are, of course, there are collection agencies, but there are also what are called check verification companies. Most of you are familiar with credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But there are also companies that help banks. People used to open up checking accounts, not pay much attention, get overdrawn, and then just close down their Artex account and walk down to Signature Bank and open an account with them instead. And the banks started saying, wait, we got a problem here. Somebody came along and said, oh, we can help you. What we'll do is we'll keep information about anybody who is a troubled writer of checks so that they can't open up a new line of, a new credit checking account that is at another bank. So there are these verification companies. Checks Systems is probably the best known one. And so if you start getting letters from check verification companies, that's another sign there's a problem here. And probably worst of all, if you get a letter from a local district attorney that says, we've got a problem here, we need to talk. You've got hot checks moving all around the town. That would also be a good indication that there's a problem with check synthesizing. So what are you going to do with this? How are you going to address the problem. One of the things that you should do is file a police report. Do it quickly. Make sure that the police are aware of the problem. And then as things change, like you might file a report based on one hot check, but then others start rolling in, you want to take those back to the police as well, and show them the spread of the problem as it develops. If you are currently have a checking account or a bank relationship, you might go to that bank and say, I've got a problem here with this fraudulent checking account. And your bank probably is familiar with those check verification systems, and they might be able to contact them on your behalf. It's also suggested that if you're getting calls from merchants about bounced checks, call those merchants back. If you're getting phone calls, if you're getting letters, let them know what's going on. You've been victimized by check fraud, and you're not responsible for this debt, but you're doing all that you can to help prosecute whoever is responsible. Let's see. The Identity Theft Resource Center, which is one of the resources on that list, has a victim form that you can fill out that kind of explains the nature of the problem. You can complete that, and you can send that to the bank that has issued the fraudulent account. You could send it to merchants as well that have been receiving these hot checks. I would be a little careful though. This IRTC form, one of the things that it asks you to fill in there is your Social Security number. If you're sending that form to a police, to the police, you're probably pretty well assured that it's going to be held in confidence. But if somebody else bounced a check in your name at a local restaurant, and you send this form in with your Social Security number on it, I probably wouldn't do that. I think it's ill-advised. So you could send them the form, explain to them what's going on, but I would give them a redacted version. And then finally, just as you can put a freeze on your credit reports, you can also put a freeze on the check systems. So that if anybody goes into a bank and says, hi, I'm Joe Willinger, I want to open up a new checking account here, the bank is going to check with the check systems, and they're going to pull up my name, and they're going to see that it's frozen. That I've been alerted to the fact this is a problem, and I don't want anybody else opening up a checking account in my name. So that will nip that problem in the bud there. And on the resource page, I think one of the very last resources that I list there gives you the link to the check systems, so that you can send in that form and put a freeze on that. So we've kind of explored 4 different areas for the tax problem. We've talked about what happens, how do you know that the problem is there, what can you do about it. We've also explored what can happen when somebody opens up a new lines of credit in your name. And Mark explained what happens when somebody gets access to your current lines of credit and starts using them to do purchases on them in an unauthorized way. And finally, I talked about check synthesizing as a 4th problem that can arise from identity theft coming out of a data breach. There are some potential problems. Those resources that I gave you will help you look at some of the others, but I think this gives you a really good overview. Thing to keep in mind, though, is this is the modern age we live in. We can't pretend that we can gain the benefits of technology without facing the risks. That doesn't mean that it's an insufferable hurdle. It just means that we have to be able to recognize problems when they arise, and we have to be willing to take steps to avoid problems, to protect ourselves, and then to respond when problems do arise. Yes?
I have a question. So those of us who were, unfortunately mean, one of the things that these people got is our social security number. Do you have any advice for us about how to protect ourselves there?
Okay.
Everywhere, for example, just even when you go in to a meddler place because you can't get to your doctor, they want your social security. How can we protect ourselves?
The question for you, listening remotely, was if you're a victim of this breach, they got your social security number. And social security number is used for a lot of different things. How can you protect yourself if they use to have your social security number? One of the things you probably will not be able to do is change your social security number. Social Security Administration is very, very reluctant to change social security numbers for a person. But I think if you can keep your eyes open for these unrelated problems, you can recognize when they're popping up and nip them in the bud as best as possible.
So do you think you would advise when you're asked to provide your social security number that you not do so?
Should you provide your social security number when asked? For example, who would be asking you?
Oh, well, this is a good example. Like just recently, I had to go to one of those ER things, not the ER, but a mental workplace, and they want my social security number.
Okay, that's right. You did mention that in the questions. You went to a mental workplace, or if you go to a doctor's office, oftentimes will ask you to provide your social security number. Why are they doing that? Why do you think they're doing that? Because they want to make sure that you don't skip out on the bill and they can't trace you. So it's mostly a billing issue more than anything else. I would say to the provider, I am not comfortable providing you with my social security number. If you want, I can give you my driver's license. You can copy the driver's license number down. You can verify my information in other ways, but I'm not at all comfortable with providing you with social security. Okay. Yes, another question.
Who has the right to get your social security number?
Who has the right?
Yeah. You know, like Uncle Sam has the right, Abe has the right. When I went to sell my house, of course, they wanted my social security number. I told them no. Well, just like everybody wants a social security
Yes, they do. Because, yeah, I understand.
But who has the right?
Who has the absolute right to get access to a social security number? Government does. Very few other people actually do have the right to have access to your social security number. And if you're uncomfortable with that, just say, I'm not comfortable providing you with that information. Are there alternative forms of identification I can provide? Or can I take my business down the street and work with somebody who will not require this? Mark,
Yeah, just going to add to that. Originally, we've had some people come up to us before classes and show us who've had their social security card for a long time. Originally, the card said not to be used
as identification.
As identification. But of course, it got where it was used for identification. Not just for the government and banks and so forth, but to rent videos at the video store and things of that nature. And there's nothing to stop the merchants from asking us what's your social security number. But if they're not entitled to it, they're not the government, what have you, then you don't have to give it to them. You can just say, I'm not comfortable giving that to you. But the kicker is you have to be willing to walk away because they might say, well, it's the social security number of a bust. So you just have to be, you can try to work that out and see if they'll accept something else. But ultimately, if they say, no, that's what we want, well, you don't have to give it to them, but you may have to be willing to walk away.
Any other questions? Well, we are Credit Council of Arkansas. Here in the community, we've been here for 22 years and plan to be here for a number more. If there are things that we can help you with, please let us know. Give you our contact information. And just glad that we were able to help you out with the situation. Thanks.
Great. I wanted to thank Joel and Mark for being here today. Before you leave, please make sure if you are interested in getting that resource sheet electronically, we have a piece of paper at the back. Make sure we have your name and email address so we can send that to you. And if you want the slides, you might note on there that you'd like the slides as well. There was one point that came up that I just wanted to clarify. You had talked about getting free copies of the credit report. There are some websites out there that are maybe not as up and up as the big three credit agencies. So I think what you were recommending is that they go directly to the big three, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Only those three places. And those that contact information is on that resource sheet. So don't go to other websites and say, hey, you can get your credit report free here because that might take you down a wrong path.
I will add also that those free credit reports do not include a credit score, but they offer to sell you a credit score along with it if you want.
Always more fun. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience? Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.